Okay, we are recording. I'm going to put the captions on. Feel free to hide those if you don't need them for your own self. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us for getting started with OpenRefine. We have with us today Margaret Heller. She is the newly appointed head of digital services at DePaul University. And she was previously the digital services librarian at Loyola University Chicago. She is the author of the 2019 book, Community Technology Projects, Making Them Work. She is currently serving as the past president of CORE, a division of the American Library Association, and is the outgoing chair of the Aluna Primo Working Group. So I'm going to hand over the virtual floor to Margaret. Again, just one last time, that bit.ly link that I put into the chat will get you to the documents, files that Margaret will be referring to. So I am going to shut off my video and it is all yours, Margaret.
Okay, thanks everyone. I was peeking at the participants list. I can see there's some people I know well on that list. So it's nice to see some of you again and meet those of you who I haven't met before. So just a little bit of a overview first of what we'll be discussing today. So again, as Diana mentioned, there's a link here. I put it up here again. This will have the slides we're currently looking at and a couple of files. So you can go ahead and download those if you want. Make your own copies of those files. Don't edit the ones in the folder because we'll all need to use those. But that will be there. So today we're going to spend the first 10 minutes. Hopefully it will only take 10 minutes, but we'll see. Learning how to install OpenRefine. Then we're going to learn to navigate and use the basic features in OpenRefine. We'll spend about 20 minutes on that. Then we'll spend about 20 minutes talking about how to connect to external data sources, and then we're going to wrap up with some questions. So, these times are approximate. If we need to flex things, that's fine, but this is just kind of my plan for the day, and we'll have a chance for you to do hands-on work on your own and then come back with questions. So if as you do have questions, feel free to ask them. If we can't get to all of them during the session, I can answer some of them follow up later on. So I know some people may have seen OpenRefine before, some people may have not, maybe totally new, but I'm going to go ahead and just describe a little bit about what OpenRefine is, and then we'll get into installing it. So from about 2010 to 2013, it was known as Google Refine. I only say that because if you ever used it before, you might have heard that term before. There's different things in the interface you'll see that have Google or GR or something like that. So it might be confusing if you don't know that it used to be called Google Refine. And it was basically, it was an independent product that was acquired by Google, and then Google stopped supporting it in 2013. So it's now independent. It's gotten some recent funding from Mark Zuckerberg's or his wife's foundation. I don't know. Anyway, it's gotten some recent funding, and so it's actually kind of a really fun time to be working with OpenRefine again. If you worked with it a long time ago, I kind of worked for years with nothing happening to it. Like, it did the thing it did okay, but it kind of didn't do anything new. It's no longer the case. It's now really, there's lots of activity happening. It's a kind of good, vibrant community to be in again. You were here today because it's used by librarians a lot, but it's also used a lot by journalists, data scientists, like anyone who kind of needs to. But it's great with library data for reasons we'll talk about in a little bit. So I think it's powerful. It can do a lot, but it's easier to use than some other tools that are out there. It's certainly easier than, writing some scripts by yourself or that kind of thing. But it's also, there are some quirks in how it works. And one of the things that's kind of important to note is it's not really a spreadsheet. It's not like Excel. It's not really a database. It kind of is a mix of both things. So it's not great for data entry, like you might do in a spreadsheet or a database. It's really like after you have the data, working with that data, fixing it up. So we'll look at a couple examples of how that works basically coming up, but then we will, you may have to spend some time experimenting with your own data to see how to work with it. All right. So let's start with installing it. So this is when we say installing it, what we're really saying is it's kind of just it's not an installation like you might normally install something. It's kind of like basically a little website that sits on your computer, and so you're kind of just installing the basics of this little website. It's not like you don't install a program. It's like basically just open it up and run it. So I'll show you what that looks like. But the very first thing you're going to do is go to openrefine.org. And I'm going to go ahead and open up on this screen the website that we're going to here. So it's openrefine.org. I can paste that in the chat. I don't know, or maybe Diana, you can make sure people get that. So that's openrefine.org is the website we're going to. So you will be going to, and just, can everyone still see my screen? Diana, can you still see my screen? Just to make sure.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Great. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure. Okay, so in this, you will see this big download button. So you're going to click on that, and you're going to figure out what is the right thing. So I'm on a Windows computer right now. Hopefully it will have figured out which computer you're on. But then here's some different options. So you've got a Windows installer, a Windows zip file, Mac OS, Linux. So hopefully one of those will be working for you. You will be, generally what you're going to be doing is you downloading this zip file. And when you download the zip file, that's really all you need to do. You'll download the zip file. I've done this already, but just to show you what it looks like. You'll save it someplace you're going to find again. So I've saved it. I'm not going to download it again. It's already saved to my desktop. So I'm not going to actually download it again, but you save it to your desktop or someplace you can find it again easily. And then you're going to unzip that file. So this is on Windows. It'll look a little different if you're on a Mac. But essentially it's the same concept. You're just kind of like unzipping this folder, and then that folder has everything you need in it. You don't have to install anything else. So you'll save that. You'll once you do that, you will extract. When you have your file here, you will extract it. Like, sorry, pull this over here. So you'll extract it somewhere. So you could put it on your desktop. You could put it in your user directory. You could put it on the C drive, wherever you're going to be able to find it again easily. It's just that folder is what you need. It's not going to go into your program files. It's not going to go into your app launcher or anything like that. So it's just the folder. So make sure you save it someplace that you can find it again, and extract it someplace where you can find it again. And then I'll just show you what it looks like. I have mine on my C drive here. You can see I opened the file to here, or extracted my folder to here just on my C drive. Not saying that's the best practice, but that's what I did for this purpose today. And then if I can see in here, I've got all my different folders in there. So that's what you're going to be. So I'll give everyone 2 minutes to download that and start extracting it, and then I'll start talking about what it does, because it may take a minute. As you're running into problems, because there are always going to be problems, go ahead and you can put those in questions, put those in the chat. I'm going to just open up here a few tips. So let's see. Oops, that is not what I meant to do. But here's the download install running tips here. You should be able to see those. So, oops, sorry, I need to go back one slide. Here we go. Okay, so again, tips here as you're doing this. You're going to extract it to a folder that you can control, like your user folder. If you try to run it the first time when you click on it, and I'm going to show you how you actually click on it in a second here, but when you go to click on it, you may have to launch as an administrator or select run anyway or something like that. It may not want to run it the first time. You can pin the app to the start or the app launcher, so you can find it. And then, it can be a little slow to run if you have huge data sets. You'll also have infinite undos. We'll get to that in a second though, so don't worry about that. Okay, so I'm going to show you one. Let me show you here what you're going to be doing here. So it's on your. So if you got it on your got it in my C drive here. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see, where is it? Of course, now I'm not. Here we go. Here it is. It's so OpenRefine. So I've got, this is my extracted folder. So this is the thing we're getting our folder downloaded. We're extracting it. This little thing right here is what you actually click on to make it run. So this diamond shape here where it says OpenRefine, you'll double click on that and that will open up the It will launch in a web browser. Because like I said, it's kind of just like a little web application you've installed on your computer. And so it all runs on this web application that runs locally on your computer. So when you click on that, you'll see, you might see like a weird dialog box pop up with code in it. That may have to run for a few minutes. And then it'll open up in your browser. So that's, when I say pin to your, if you're on Windows, if you right click on this, if you go to, I pinned it to my start, you can, so you'll see a thing like pin to start or pin to taskbar. That way, if you click on that in the future, you don't have to go into the folder. You can just click on this one little thing in your start menu or on your taskbar, wherever you want to put it, or in your app launcher. And you can just open it up that way. So once you're starting to get this installed, like if you are getting this folder downloaded, you're getting it extracted, you're clicking on it, you're starting to see it open, go ahead and just put a note in the chat if you're getting that. So I'm going to give everyone a minute to do that. I'm going to go ahead and pop open over to OpenRefine so we can start looking at it while you're doing your installations. And again, just if you are starting to get some success, you can put it in the chat, and then if we're having a lot of problems, we can pause. But a couple things to note here: you'll see this sort of weird looking thing in the address bar here. Oh, chat is disabled. Okay, good. I'm seeing some people are getting it installed, so good. Okay. So yeah, just note here it has this weird looking address in the address bar because it's this is like basically the IP address for your computer, and then it's running just kind of in the it's kind of just running on the computer. Okay, it sounds like chat's working now. So yeah, if you want to put some things in chat, that's great. But I'm glad it looks like at least some people are getting installed, so that's good to know. Okay, so this is basically what you should be seeing. You'll have this weird looking thing in the address bar, and then you'll have some different options here. So most of these are pretty self-explanatory. We'll go over how do you get data into here pretty soon. We'll talk about that. If you download that folder, you'll be able to get into those get those files. But so we'll talk about this in a second. A couple things that are kind of interesting. If you have a project, so if you've been working, this is the one I worked on yesterday. I can just click on that and then reopen it. And then once this is a fairly new install. I just installed a new version of this a couple days ago. So I have I don't have a lot of projects in here, but once you start working with this, all of your projects will be here, and you can kind of go back to any of them at any point. It'll show you last modified. So it's pretty nice. You can kind of go in, it'll tell you what's been happening with this. Obviously, there's not a lot in here yet. And then if you were to, you can extract a project and then import it elsewhere. So that's also nice. So if you change computers or something like that, you can save your work. You can pull your project files out and move them to different places. So that's good. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pop back over here to my slides for a second. So again, we got our sample data. So what I'd like for you to do to start with this is if you find file 1, go ahead and download file 1 or download the whole. So just put it somewhere. So I'm going to put file 1 on my desktop. So if you need, so just spend a second doing that. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and pull that into here. So I've got, you can see get data from this computer. Today we're going to talk about these first two options, this computer and web addresses. Clipboard is let me see, I see if I'm in chat. Okay. The address again for, yeah, okay, there you go. All right. So yeah, that's that folder. And you can download this and, again, use it as much as you want to practice with. This first file, I'll just say this is fake data. These are just like automatically generated data for practice, basically like this. So none of these, any resemblance to people who are living or dead is merely coincidental. But that's what we're seeing here. The second file we look at is real data, but it's public data. So it's a CV. So, but just so you're aware, like this first one is fake data. The second one is real data. So, but okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and from this computer, I'm gonna browse and I'm gonna find file 1. And I'm gonna go here and it will take a second. It will upload it. And it takes a second. So this is kind of where the magic begins to happen, because it's like, here's this spreadsheet or here's this file, and then it's trying to figure out, what is this thing? Is it an Excel file? Is it a CSV file? And is it for librarians? Is it a mark file? Is it mark records? That's a big one that we might want to use. Which some of these are much more complicated, so I'm not even gonna get into them today. But just so you know, there are a lot of things that we'll try to automatically parse to figure out what it is. In this case, it knows that I want to have the first line as column headers. It's pretty straightforward. And if there were multiple sheets in this, it would let me choose which one I wanted to choose. But that's basically, you can change all this. So if you've got more complicated data and you like, I need to get rid of the first 4 rows and I really only want sheet 2, or whatever kind of data you're dealing with, depending what kind of stuff you deal with. If you think like, this vendor always gives me this report and I really only want the last 10 lines of sheet 2, you don't have to like edit the file before you get it in here. You can just pull the data in that you want when you load it. So just take a note of that. You can change the name, the project name, to be something you'll recognize. So I can just change this to, I'm going to change this to address practice so that I remember what it's called in the future. You can tag it if you've got a lot of things. If you, if you've got certain areas you work on, you want to tag them. Any of that just can help you organize once you start using it. And then I'm gonna go ahead, once I'm satisfied with all my selections here, I've updated the preview if I made changes. I'm gonna go ahead and create the project. And this is not very much data, so it shouldn't take that long. If you are working with many rows, it will take longer. But it's, so yeah, and then the default here, so let's just get into some of the things about the interface here. I just want to point out a couple of things. Facet and filter. You'll start here in this tab in the facet and filter, and then you will, once you start working with the data, you'll see everything appear here. The undo redo tab is the other tab you'll see here. This is where it really gets exciting because you have infinite undo. So it'll show you everything you do here, and then you can go back to whatever point you realize, like, oh, I made a mistake. You can go back, and then if you extract it, where it says extract, I can show you that later. But basically, it'll give you a record of everything you did. And if you decide, oh, I messed this up, I want to take out this, this thing I did here, you can do that. You can take out just the mistake you made and rerun it. And when you click on apply, it will rerun everything for you the correct way with no mistakes. So this is a great tool if you kind of, you mess around with it. You're like, oh, I did this wrong. I need to redo it. You don't have to document all the steps you take. It'll do it for you, and then you can rerun it with no mistakes in it the second time. So I think it's just a very forgiving tool if you're feeling nervous about using it. Okay, the drop downs and exports and extensions over here. If you would export, this is where I mentioned you could project archive. You can download it as these different options here. You can download it directly to Google. You can do all these different things. So most of these things you're not going to do. You're really just going to want to basically save the file for later or download it as one of these types of kind of simple data formats, but just be aware these are here. And then the extensions we'll talk about in a little bit, but you'll see here in the extensions, Wikibase is the only one that's built in. You can install other ones later, and I'll show you how you do that later if you want to use them. There's some of them that are specifically designed for library data, so you can install those later if you want. Okay, you can see here I have 50 rows in this whole thing. It's only showing 10, but if I want to just show everything in my database here, I can just click on 50 and then I can just look through everything here in my spreadsheet. Okay, so that's what we've done. Gotten some data in. Hopefully, we've gotten some. This data is. We think we'll look at it. It's like, okay, we can kind of see what's going here. But what is interesting about this data is there are some inconsistencies that may be easier to spot if you do different things with facets and filtering. So I'm just going to do an example and do a text facet on this first name, and I can just kind of see some things here. So I can see, if I go by count, I can see it's actually interesting. I don't think this would happen in real life, but in this fake data, you can see there's only one person of every single name. That's interesting. But if I go by state and I do a text facet there, I can see things like I can sort by count here, and I can see, okay, there's actually 5 people from California, New York, 4 people from New Jersey. So if you want to start to say, oh, what's, like, let me see everyone from California, I can click on California and just have that. And then I can, go back and click on one of these others if I wanted to change that. So it's kind of easy ways if you want to slice and dice in different ways, or you want to see what's, and just click on again to make it show everything again. So you can do some work here, and then if you want to, you can also, if you click on where it says 24 choices, it will show you here. You can copy and paste this. So I use this a lot of time if I want to, I want to see like how many were there of a certain particular value. I'll just copy this list out because I've got I want to see how many from each thing. So even just something like that right there, it's a lot faster than making a pivot table in Excel that would tell you the same thing, but it's just a lot faster because you don't need a whole chart. You just need to know the values. You need to know what was the most popular. This will be enough to do that. Other things that you can spot if you're seeing something that looks wrong, if you look through here and you could say, if it's easier, so you can say, that's interesting. I see Oi. Oi is not a state. Huh. So I'm going to click on this and see, what is this? I can see, okay, Chagrin Falls in this, which I don't know how to pronounce that correctly, but I can see, this is actually, I happen to know that Chagrin Falls is in Ohio. So I can just click on this, press that, and I can see also zip code. I know this is or you can look this up. There's other things. So now I've changed it. So I can go back here, and if I were to update this, sorry, I need to, let me click on this again. I can also, there's a couple of things. You could also edit it right here. You don't have to edit from here. You can edit from these values as well. But you can see I went down to 23 choices. So I found that inconsistency that looked a little weird, and I removed it. Other things you can do that are kind of, nice little tips. If you look through this list, you can kind of see there's some odd looking things on some of these. So you can see, some people have Mr. or Ms. You can sometimes spot those a little more easily. Another thing you can do is you'll see sometimes when people do data entry, they put in an extra white space. There are these different drop downs that will do all kinds of different things, and we're not even going to scratch the surface of what these can do. But one of the things you can see if you go into edit cells and you go to convent transforms, these are things that you often would want to do with data that are a little bit annoying to do in one way or another. So I can see one thing here is trim leading and trailing white space. So if I just click on that, it should, you can see, what did it do? If you noticed here before, there was like a Lena with a space, that space at the beginning was telling me, that wasn't entered incorrectly. It went away. So now I have able as the first one. So I didn't like check to see which one it was. I just did that. So let me show you one more time um, what I did here. So I went to edit cells, common transforms, and then trim leading and trailing white space. So those are some things. Another thing I want to show you is the a different type of facet. So I'm going to go to zip code, and I'm going to go to a numeric facet. So let me close some of my other facets here that okay. So oh wait, that's not quite what I meant to do. Actually, that's a little bit different than what I was trying to do. So this one, I need a I'm going to start getting way too confusing. But what I can do here is what I want to do is see, I can spot in here what I'm trying to show you. Let me do it. It's just a regular text facet. It's probably just is easy to see here. You can see some of these are shorter. Like we know that a zip code should be 5 digits long. So you can see some of these, you can just visually see that they're wrong. And what's happened here is that the leading 0 has been dropped. So there is actually a way to create a facet that will do a count for you, which I'm not going to show you because we don't really have time to get into it. But you can at least see it here, and you can edit it, and you can just click on 0. I can edit right here, apply, and there it's been fixed. So different ways you can do that. Just to spot things. So what I'd like for you to do is spend a couple minutes, like 3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to go back to my slides here. I said a couple things. Okay. So take a couple minutes. I showed you some examples already, but if there's anything in particular put those in the chat. I can pull it up here. If there's any fun examples of mistakes or errors you found to fix that data. And just as a reminder, it's all in the undo redo tab, so I can see this is what I did. Okay, so I fixed column row 14 state. I did a text transform with the value trim. I did a math edit on columns. So, you can see some different things I've done here. So if you want to go back and see what you did, you can look at in here. Okay, so just spend like 3 minutes working on that, and then we will move on to the next thing. I just want to also highlight that this is really just a teaser of this tool. I hope you're seeing there's a ton you can do with it. So today we're just really doing the super basics, and then I'll give you some resources at the end to continue your training, because there's no way you can get into everything this tool can do in an hour, but hopefully you're getting at least some fun playing around with it. So if you're finding some interesting things in your data that you want to point out, go ahead and put them in the chat, and I can pull some of them up here. I have I also, what I can send out, if you're curious to see later, I can send it out by email. If you want the answer key to everything that's in this data, you can, if you want to work on this later and then get the answer key later, I'm happy to provide it. I do have a list of everything that is wrong with this data that I know about. There may be other things wrong with the data that I didn't spot though. So just so you know. So give me 2 more minutes, just spend some time working on it independently, play around with it a little bit, see what you're finding. I can show you 1 or 2 examples in addition.
So don't forget to put any interesting things that you find in this data in the chat, and share with the group.
Yeah, I know it can be a little tricky when you're just playing around with it to figure out anything. So we can look at some things. Okay. Okay. So we have one example. Someone's found it. One phone number is formatted without dashes. So that there's a couple ways. That's a really good observation, and there's a couple ways you could figure that out. I'm not going to get into the whole thing with regular expressions. That's a term you should definitely Google what that means if you don't know what it means. But there's ways that you kind of expect data to be structured. And so you can do some searches based on that. But there's some other things you can do. You can see, for example, this particular phone number, it just shows like a number. It looks like a number. So you can see that. Another way you could figure that out is if you do a text filter. Sorry, let me go back to my facet filter here. Text filter. So I can see if there's anything that has a, okay, so I can put a dash in there. So anything that has a dash, you can see one of my things went away. If I invert it, I can see, oh, there's the one that was the mistake. So then I can go and make that edit right here and put in the correct dashes. So that goes away. Okay, so I can apply that. Oops, okay, except this got messed up here. Well, anyway, I didn't do that quite right, but I can go back and I can edit it and go back. Okay, there it goes back. So anyway, I can edit this correctly some other time. So there's some different ways. So basically what I'm pointing out here is as you find an error in one piece of data, you might assume there are other things that are missing that data that might be wrong. So, and then that invert option, you say like, okay, I know what it should be. What's the opposite of that? You can start putting out that. Another thing, email addresses, people do those wrong a lot. So there can be some interesting things you find out there. So I'm going to do a text facet on the email addresses. And you can see, okay, we expect it to should have com or org. As you're starting to look here, you can kind of see some clusters of that. So if I say, I want to see what is missing, you can see, okay, here's the .orgs. You can start to play around with that a little bit, but you can see if it doesn't end in .org or .com, or there's something, or maybe some other kind of term, you've got net, you've got .com, you can see there, like, so here's one where it's just missing anything. It doesn't have the .com. So there's some ways you can do some searching and just kind of see like what's not looking right. So you can apply there. So this is, this is data that's basically pretty well structured, but it just has a few errors. It's like the same kind of thing you'd find if any kind of data entry. It might be generally fine, but there's going to be a few human errors people have made. You can start to do some clustering and figure out things out that are likely to be wrong. So just play around with it for a little bit. So again, this data, take some time practicing with this. There are, I don't remember the exact number. There's about 15 things that you might find in here. So if you want the answer key, I'm happy to provide it, like I said. But let's go back to, we'll move on to our next thing here, but just a couple things to play with there. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is different ways you might organize or format data that you have. You have it in one format and you want to get it to a different format. So that file 2 is what we'll start to look at in a second here. And just a couple things about this data. So what this is it's a CV that somebody sent, you'll note it's a professor of physics. It's from a very long time ago. This CV is not up to date. I've used this as an example because it had some interesting things with the data, the way it was structured, that I think make it kind of helpful for workshops like this. But just to be clear, it's messy data that started out messy. So basically, it was a CV that I partially formatted, and I'll show you kind of how the steps I took to do that. But we've got that bib information column. You'll see in a second. I'll open that up. I'm going to keep working on this. All right, so I'm going to go back to my folder. I will download file 2. Got that. Okay, so now I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to save it to my desktop again so I can find it. So I've got OpenRefine here. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done with this one. I'm done working on this file and work on something else. You don't have to save anything. You don't have to do anything. You just click back where it says OpenRefine, and it'll take you back to that start area here. So again, I mentioned if I want to open a project, I have here address practice. It's here. I can see when I last worked on it. I can learn about it. So I'm good. That's sitting there. I don't have to mess with it. It can just stay there. So I don't have to save anything. It's really nice. Again, it's like very error tolerant. So to do the exact same thing I did before, I'm going to download file 2. And this will start to be pulled in here. Okay, so I can see it's got all of these columns. I don't really need every single one of these columns, but you can, so you can, but for now, I just keep everything in here. So I'm going to change this one from file 2 to be practice. So I know what this is later on. And you can see this data is kind of a mess, but we'll work on it. Okay, so what I want to show you here in this, the point of it, looking at this is a couple different things, but we're going to look at the text transform options and the split columns options a little bit more here. So you can see here, this faculty member has published in a number of different journals over the years, and I want to see, so I can do some simple things where I can, again, go back to that text facet and just some ways you might play around with this data. You can see, I want to see, okay, sometimes they're like not quite the same text, they're a little bit different. I can see there might be some different spacings going on here. This looks generally okay, but what I like to do if I've got data that's, I'm like, it's probably fine, but what I could do, first of all, I can run that again, that edit cell, I can trim leading and trailing whites. Okay, so there were 28 cells that needed some work there, so I'm already seeing some things here. So I can rerun my text facet here and see. So yeah, I can see, okay, so there's some things that are close, but not quite the same. Like I can see there's minor things that need to do. So I'm going to take out that period there, apply that. You can say, okay, 8 now published in American Journal of Physics. I can also do this cluster. This can be helpful. This may not actually be that, but you can see it'll start to find things that are roughly similar, and you can say, oh, yeah, Journal of Physics A, mathematical in general. I just choose, I'm like, okay, it should actually read like this. That's what I want it to say. I want to merge it. I want to merge and recluster. So that is really, it'll kind of like automatically look for patterns of things that should be different. It won't catch everything. You can run it, you can do all kinds of things, but you can start to see, even just scanning through this list, things that are probably the same thing and just need some minor fixes. So one good example here would be International Journal of Physics A. What I can do is I can copy this. Oops, did the wrong thing. All right, I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to edit this one and change it there. Oh, I did it wrong. Okay, sorry. Okay. I can copy it. I'm just going to type it in now since I seem to be. Did I get it right? Yep. Yeah, and you can see it made this shoe here. So just some simple things you can kind of look through this list of like, okay, someone just entered this stuff wrong over these. I just want to make it consistent so that if we're checking this particular journal, we know we're checking the correct journal, that kind of thing. Okay, and then you can see here this bib information. I want to clean this up a little bit too. So I want to figure out like what year these things were published, what journals, that kind of thing. So I can, one thing I can do is start to make some changes here. So what I'm going to do is show you split into several columns. And there's many more sophisticated ways to do this that I encourage you to spend some time playing around with and learning. But I just want to show you some basics here of this. If you know there's a particular separator that is always going to be there, you can see this data is a little messy, so I might be a little nervous about doing that. But I can see, like, for example, there's generally a space and then parentheses between the journal, between the volume and the year. But so if I were to run this, I could say, okay, that looks generally like a thing I can do. You probably can spot ahead of time what will happen. But if I want to say it's a space and a parentheses, and then I can, do all these different things, but I'll just do the basics to show you what will happen. Okay, so it's done it in some cases. It's perfect. It's given me exactly what I want. It's got the volume, year, page, or volume, issue pages in one column. It's got my year in the other column. You can see in some cases it's not consistent because of the way the data was formatted. So luckily, I've got my undo redo again, so I can just go back and it's back where it was. So again, I don't have to worry about it if I made a mistake or I don't like what I did. But you could start to see some things you might look at to fix, to make this more consistent, or some different ways you could do your searches. So one thing you could see is like, okay, if I see there's one thing I see, there's often two spaces, and I don't want that. So if I have collapsed consecutive white space, that's one I could do. And you can see, okay, in 8 cells, it took out white space where someone put in 2 spaces. I can see in other cases, there might be things where there really does need to be a space between the digit and the parentheses. And I'm not going to get into regular expressions today, but if this is something you're interested in working with, learn a couple of those because that'll really help you out. Basically, that's ways of like referring to text in a way that the computer can understand, and it can be very powerful. But assuming that's beyond the scope of today, you can at least sort of see, okay, I want to make some clusters here and change some things around and see if I can figure this out. So at least helps you to get it a little bit cleaner and like tell you some ways you might format that data differently to work on that. What I again encourage you to do, spend some time working on this on your own, practice some different things, find some inconsistent data, and then you can figure out if you can get years into a separate column. So again, I'm not going to get through that all today, but I just want to think there's a way to do it. Let me explain what I actually do with this data, where I don't do it anymore in my new job, but in the past, what we did with this data, just to understand like why this is helpful. The undo function again. Yeah, you can. So if you go here, yeah, you just okay. So let me show you. Actually, if you extract something, this has everything. So I can copy this. So I'm gonna copy all of that. Okay, so I'm gonna go back. I can go back here, and then I just go to your undo redo. You just go back to the one you wanted to do. If you want to apply a particular thing you did, you can paste this in, and then you can just let's see. So I'm going to pull out everything that this last one here. And you can see I pasted in this and it just redid it again. So if you are not sure what you wanted to do or undo or whatever, pull everything out and then you can just paste it back in. If you're like, oh, I actually did want that, then you can paste it back in. So it's really nice again. Yeah. So anyway, what I would do with this data. So I'm not going to demonstrate this today because it's pretty intensive, but a lot of services have an API that you can work with, and you can put in data in a particular format, and it will spit back information to you. That's a huge thing I do a lot with this. It's a great way to work with an API if you're not really a developer, you don't have time to work with it. So I would then basically take this journal column, and I can add column by fetching URLs. I would fill in my API string here, and then it would pull back everything about this journal that I wanted to know from that data. So in this case, was it an open access journal or not? You could think of all kinds of different ways. You could use the OCLC API to do stuff with this, to get your holdings. You can do all kinds of cool stuff, depending what you have access to. So a lot you can do with this, and but I'm not gonna go into all that right now, but just to say, like, there's a reason to if you get all your data consistent in a column, then you can do a lot of stuff with that data later on. All right. So that is some stuff about organizing data. Okay, I want to just do one last thing, and then we can move on to questions. We're a little behind my schedule, but I think we'll be okay. What I want you to do is figure out ways to, I'm going to show you some ways to extend data. So I've got UN data open here. this is all free data that you can work with. So what I pulled here is, you can see there's lots of different options here, but you could pull in, you can pull in one of these. So I'm going to pull in this CSV. So I'm going to copy this link here. I'm not going to download, I'm just copying the link. I'm going to show you one other way to get data in here. So again, I'm going to just click on this, get out of here. I will save it for later. I know it's not going anywhere. I know that project's saved there. But I want to create a project from a web address. So this is one where you can just paste in that address. So I know there's a CSV here that I can download. So that's what I want to do. Let's put out here Google data. You can download Google Sheets directly into this as well. I'm not going to do it today because I've got, tons of stuff I don't want. I can't really show publicly, but there's, you can imagine if you work with Google Sheets a lot in your job, there might be lots of things you could pull in that way directly. Also see the copy and paste option can, if you've got a text file that you want to start working with, that you can separate into different columns, that's where you can paste that in. So a couple things I want to point out here. You can see in this case, I have, it's a little bit of a different formatted file. You can see, okay, it's got like this header that's not really that useful. It's really one that I want to start working with. So this is where you can start ignoring lines. So again, I mentioned you want something that's in later, you can update my preview here. So you can say, okay, it's gone here to my, these different types of things. And I know I've gotten to where I want to do, and then I can do like, so here I've got that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and create that project. And you can choose, again, when you go here, you can choose any of these you want, anything you're interested in. I just picked this first one, but you can imagine anything here you want to work with. Okay, so I can see lots of, there's 7,652 rows in this. So I'm not going to be able to, this is where you're going to start to really need that facet and filtering. So I want to go to a text facet here. I want to see what is this, region, country, area. So you may not know what all of these mean, but you can start to do some text facets to figure this out. And you can see here, I've got, okay, I want to actually just go to particular countries. So I'm going to go to, let's see, I was going to, Croatia was the one I wanted to go to. All right. Okay, so I can see, okay, Croatia, I can see, okay, that's 191 is the code for Croatia. I can start to go by year, so I can do a timeline facet here. So I can see, oh, I've got some weird data in here that's not working. But if this were actually formatted as a year, transform to date, here we go. There we go. Now I've got my, I've transformed this to a date now, so then I can actually start to move this around a little bit. Anyway, I'm not going to mess with that too much right now, but just to say you can start changing this data around and do different things with it. So that's some basics that I can just start playing with. The other thing I wanted to show you is how to extend your data. And so I mentioned Wikibase is built in here. There's this, so Wikidata is kind of like the data backend of Wikipedia. So all of the usual caveats to Wikipedia apply, but it can be really helpful because it starts connecting you to other data sources that are a little more reliable. So what I'm going to do is reconcile. That's what this reconcile option here. I can start reconciling, and it'll say, okay, what I want. Okay, I got Wikidata, so only one installed. You could install any ones you want in here. I'll show you how you do that in a second. But you can see, okay, this is a geographic region. I know that here. I can, I know that's, if you can look through here if you weren't sure if it's a book. Maybe it's book, you want to say, okay, it's likely to be a book. Basically, it's just going to kind of look in that type, and it's going to see if it can figure out what that is. So I know this is a geographic region in this case, but there could be other ones. Lots of other options here, but this is just kind of the basics. It's just going to run through. It's going to say, hey, Wikidata, what is this? Do you know what this is? And it'll take a few minutes to go, but depending on which data, and you can say, oh, here's all the different things that it could be. So in this case, I'm just going to pick, I'm going to pick this one. and I'm going to match all identical cells. And so it'll just say, hey, yeah, it's Croatia. Okay, cool. So that's fine. Like whatever. It's said, yeah, this is Croatia. I knew that. But then this is where it can get interesting, because you can then start. You can then you can start adding data based on that data you're seeing. So add columns from reconciled values is what I'm looking for. So I go to column, edit column, add columns from reconciled values. And this is where it can get really interesting, because then I can start to say, here's all these different properties about this. So I wanted to pick, I think I've got, I might type this in wrong, but whenever offer this authority IT. I don't know if this is actually going to work. But you can start doing some of these work and some of them don't. Okay, so you can, but you can remove them. But there is one that does work that I can't remember now what it is, but I can start to fill in some of these other things. So and you can just start to click and see which is actually on here. But there is one that I can do maybe. So you can do that. Okay, so you can create a new baseline, so you can fill in Dewey Decimal Classification. I don't know if this is correct, but this is, but then once you start to learn what's available, and you can figure it out if you go into click on this, it'll bring up all this information, and you can start to find other data sources. So what you can do is you can say, let me find a more reliable data source down here. You can start to find something. So if you just figure out what this is, so I want to find out what the central bank is. That's one I could do. Okay, so you can see, you start to look through that and see, okay, what's helpful to know. Now, knowing the Croatian National Bank is their national bank, probably not that helpful, but just to let you know that's in there. So one of the things I've used a lot with this in the past is finding the specific geo coordinates for a particular location, because then like if we had participants in a project, I knew what university they all worked at, so we could pull out their coordinates, and then we could just automatically create a map of where all our participants were located in the world. So that was an example of how we use this in the real world. There are a lot of library extensions that can help you with a lot of library work. So I'll show you kind of where you find those now, because some of those can be more helpful. This can do a lot, but then you can start to extend it even farther in different ways. So touch that. Okay. So a couple things I want to point out here for next steps, and I do want to take some questions too, if there's anything I can help out with on that. But one example, this first one here is the library carpentry lessons on OpenRefine. So library carpentry is kind of helping sort of self-paced work through problems. So it'll review a lot of things we talked about today. It will talk about it in different ways. So it might be helpful for you if you have different different things you want to review. But a couple things too, the OpenRefine documentation here, again, will kind of lead you through how to do all this stuff. So how do you actually use this? If you actually wanted to edit, if you found something wrong and you were editing it, there's a way to do that. Expressions, how to write all those. So all those kinds of things. If you want to look up anything that's in detail in here. Also, when you're in OpenRefine and you're working with data, I just want to show you some different things here. This help here will show you how to, there's a bunch of different things you can do in here. Again, I can't remember going over this, but it'll explain like how do you write that, how do you write this particular thing. You can just search through here. But so this is a big one, is the OpenRefine docs. Library carpentry, like I said, is self-paced, library focused for library work in particular. The other cool thing is they have a list of all these different external tutorials to figure out how to do particular types of things. So you can get some examples of for particular areas. So creating data from text, regular expressions in OpenRefine, that's a tutorial that could get you through regular expressions. I want to find out company data. There's ways you can get open company data in there. I can, you can link to authority files. You can do all kinds of different things. So you can see there are a lot of tutorials in here. Some of them will be better than others, but you can look through here and really kind of figure out some different things that might be interesting to you. You can just do you can see here, usage logs using OpenRefine librarians. So you can just even search and, come back to here from time to time and see different things, or, you can see different projects and put together. So cool things that you can find in here, just like really a lot of practices. And I find almost every time I do something with OpenRefine, I need to look something up. I forgot how to do something. I don't remember how to write it. It's also changing a lot. Like I mentioned, it's actively being developed. There's a big community around it now. You can read the blog to find out what's happening. But that means there's a lot of stuff that may be different than if you worked with this 3 years ago. It may not function the same way anymore. So definitely a thing to work through. So I hope you've gotten a taste today, gotten started, got installed. But then I really encourage you to use these resources to help do it. Questions that I can answer quickly. Okay. I see people are finding it helpful. What I want to just say, if you want to email me, if you have specific questions in the next couple of days, I'm happy to, answer specific questions that come up. I know it can be difficult if you get stuck when you're doing a technical thing on Zoom and you get stuck at one point and you feel like you're behind. Happy to answer those questions as they come up later on. If you suddenly think like, oh, I wish I'd asked this question. I don't know how it works. But yeah, go ahead and download that data, the Google Drive for today, and then you can practice with those files as much as you want. Any other questions I can answer right now? Anyone have one thing I always like to ask people that can be helpful to share with other attendees? What is what's a data set that you can immediately think of that that this would be a useful tool to work with? That can be helpful to share some of that stuff. Oh, the star and the flag at each row, that's a good question. So what this is basically, you can do whatever you want with these. They just give you additional things to do. So if I say I want to limit to Albania, just as an example, and I can, let's see, okay, now I can't remember how you do this, but you can star all of these, but let's just imagine you're starring, you've like found a couple that look wrong to you. And then here, I'm going to flag these. And then I want to go to this one and flag a couple here too. Just, kind of random. Then when you go here, you can get rid of I can facet by flag, and I can find, I've got a lot of, so I can find all those true flags. So I can do something with those. So maybe as I'm looking through here, I'm like, okay, I can see that this particular thing, I need all of those need this, and this all we need that. So you just flag it to give yourself a way to do something else. It just kind of gives you additional dimensions to work with. So it can be really helpful because a lot of times it's like you can spot there's something wrong with it and it needs the same thing done on all of them, but it's not, there's no other piece of data in there that will let you do that easily. So that will just let you, work with all of these specifically. That's a good question. When editing multiple rows of data and some rows are filtered out, it's just the visible data. So when you filter and you make these changes here, it's just what you're seeing here. And if you want to check, you can always go, it should tell you the exact number of cells it worked on. So you can see it only, when I matched item Croatia, it only did those 29 cells. It didn't do all of them. So if you're ever not sure, like how many did it do, go back into undo, redo, it'll tell you exactly how many it fixed. So, sometimes you can do the test on a small set of the data and just make sure it did what you wanted before you run it on all of them. With something like 7,000 rows, I would definitely break that into small chunks to do it. Like, don't try to run it all at the same time. So figure out a good way to filter. That's again where this flag can help you, because you can do that.
All right.
Okay, I think we're at time now, but so any other questions, please feel free to email me, and I hope you have fun with this.
All right. Thank you so much, Margaret, for presenting for us today. Thank you everyone for participating, and it was great. So again, if you have I should have the video up. Please give me till Monday of next week. I'm going to do my best to have it up today, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So I will do my best, but if not, it will be up by Monday at the latest. Thank you everyone so much. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Thanks again, Margaret.
Thanks.